Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, we're going to be doing a leveling tier list, going over every single specialization in World of Warcraft based on their speed and efficiency through the leveling process to max level. With Shadowlands around the corner, I thought that this would be an interesting list to make if you were curious in stepping into a new specialization or maybe a bit hesitant about trying one to see where that specialization would fit on the board for you in terms of its power when it comes to leveling. So let's get started. We've got a lot of specializations to go through. The first specialization on the chopping block between the champs and the chumps of leveling is going to be the Affliction Warlock. Now, this is a specialization that has a strong history of leveling very efficiently with its use of multi-dotting. It can take down multiple targets at the same time. It's very efficient going mob to mob. It has a lot of self-sustainability through Siphon Life and Drain Life. You have the usage of your demon army, such as the Void Walker, to hold aggro on elite monsters, which would be typically difficult to take down by yourself. This is a specialization that is a strong leveler. It's getting some of its mobility returned to it into its baseline kit, like the Demonic Circle. So if you were a bit hesitant about exploring into a cave or jumping off of a cliff, you could lay that portal down prior to making that move and then portal back up to safety. This is a specialization that I am putting on the A tier for leveling in World of Warcraft at the moment. For Shadowlands, it's going to be a strong choice. It's got good efficiency and ease of use. The next specialization we've got is the Arcane Mage. Now, with the Prismatic Barrier and with Barrage providing you a huge slow to the target, as well as a sprinting effect through talents, gives you a lot of mobility to avoid getting hit. Spamming Prismatic Barrier for an absorb. This is a specialization that it can't take down and pull as efficiently as Affliction Warlock in my mind. You may end up struggling a bit with mana problems, as it is one of the ranged DPS specializations really focused on its mana utilization. So there is more likely for downtime. It does not have a way to heal itself, and that is one of the main concerns. You may have difficulty with very powerful elite monsters if you wanted to try and take them on solo, but you do have access to powerful skills like Time Warp to be able to increase your casting speed and try and blast down a target before it even makes it to you. It's an efficient mage specialization, but not one of the best. In my mind, the Arcane Mage is going to be a C tier for in terms of how fast is it making it through, how easy is it going to be able to handle situations. It does bring things like invisibility to be able to skip through giant pools of monsters, as it's pretty apparent now in Shadowlands that they're kind of making the world a little bit more dangerous, especially with things like the Maw at max level. So classes that are very good at leveling are also likely to be specializations that are good at that end game content like the Maw. The next specialization we've got coming up here is going to be the Arms Warrior, typically a specialization that lacks sustain or self-sustainability. Now, it does have things like Victory Rush, so when the warrior finishes off a target, it can use the skill Victory Rush to heal itself back up and kind of go pull to pull. But the thing is, Arms Warrior, it's just not, even with that, which does feel nice through the leveling process, it's not going to be as smooth as a lot of the other specializations. You may notice a bit of downtime. You may also have difficulty pulling tons of monsters together all at the same time. You can pair powerful cooldowns up like Blade Storm as well as Die by the Sword to parry all attacks and try and go for big pulls like that. But as far as seamlessness to go pull to pull to pull to pull, you're going to have a tough time. As far as soloing elite monsters, probably borderline impossible. As Arms, you're going to need to be looking for groups for that type of content. So it's going to be a little bit lower ranked here. I'm putting it on the D tier for its leveling capabilities. It's solid. It's not a total failure, right? It's not going on the F tier, but it's going to be one that if you're new to leveling, it might be difficult to level as. So if you want it to be a warrior, there might be other specializations better suited for it, which we'll get to. But next up is going to be the Assassination Rogue. Now, the Assassination Rogue is similar to the Affliction Warlock with the ability to apply damage over time effects to multiple monsters, spamming Phantom Knives for big AoE damage. You can do big pulls with evasion, similarly to the Die by the Sword with the Arms Warrior, and then burst down a big bunch of monsters in an AoE clump, which makes it efficient. It lacks some healing that the other rogue specializations have, which holds it back, and it's going to slow it down in its leveling process. However, it does bring powerful things like stealth. Being a rogue, all rogues are going to have that. that. It's a very important skill if you're interested in skipping past a lot of annoying monsters that maybe you don't need to kill on your quest campaign. Downsides of it as well is that being a DPS only specialization or tied to a DPS only class is that you won't be able to jump the queues by respecing back over to a tank temporarily to try and make your dungeon queue pop. However, Assassination Rogues are strong in PvP, so if you take advantage of the daily arena skirmish win for a big boost of XP, a rogue is a good specialization to take advantage of that. But in my mind, the Assassination Rogue, it has stealth, which puts it above the Arms Warrior, but it's pretty close to being on par with the Arms Warrior. Now we've got the Blood Death Knight. This is the first tank specialization on the leveling tier list. As a tank, you can generally use War Mode, which is a PvP mode while leveling, which increases the experience you get. And as a tank, people don't want to mess with you because you're really annoying and don't die, and most of the time can beat most DPS specs one-on-one. So you'll likely be able to level with War Mode pretty easily, which is an advantage. Now, Blood Death Knight's damage output, I have to sneeze, in Mythic Plus is pretty strong with Bone Storm, but Bone Storm out in the world, not too great. So their damage is a little bit lacking. You'll basically never die. You'll be able to go pull to pull, but your damage is going to be low. The advantage is that you get to use War Mode, and no one's going to mess with you, and you get immediate instant queues. So in my mind, Blood Death Knight is a B for leveling. If you wanted to level as Blood Death Knight, it's gonna be reasonably easy. Now, Beast Mastery Hunter, I feel like the Hunter back in the day of Classic WoW, when you hovered over the class, it said one of its greatest skill sets was its ease of leveling, and I mean that's still true for the Beast Mastery Hunter, with your pet able to hold aggro and utilizing things like Mend Pet to heal it while it tanks all of the damage, and you just get to shoot things. Super easy experience. You've got talents like Camouflage to go into stealth, so you have stealth on top of that. You can get exotic pets to get Ancient Hysteria for Bloodlust, the temporal, the time warp from the mage, so you can get the Bloodlust for massive damage, taunting, Mend Petting. You have Feign Death. If you're ever really in a bind and you're not gonna be able to make it out of there, you just fake your own death and you get out of that situation. So to me, Beast Mastery Hunter has the entire thing to be able to go through the leveling process easily, efficiently. It's an S tier leveling specialization in my mind. Now moving forward, we've got the Balanced Druid. This is a specialization that's receiving a lot of changes. It's going to be getting Typhoon baseline in its kit, which is nice. So you'll be able to knock back enemies, dot them up, try and AoE them down with Starfall, and utilizing move while casting talents likely to take down a bunch of targets. Some of the downsides is its ability to heal up after a fight. It's not as efficient as a lot of the other specializations with Death Strike and with Victory Rush and like that. So if you're not good at avoiding getting hit with things like Wild Charge and Typhoon, you might have a difficult time. But it is a solid leveling specialization in my mind. You can never go wrong because it has stealth, it has bear form. You can join into groups really easily because it's a spec of a class that you could queue as a tank for a dungeon if you wanted to make it pump a little bit faster. In my mind, the Balanced Druid overall, it can be a bit risky with War Mode. It's not the greatest one-on-one spec, so I think it does hold it back a bit, which is why I'm putting it on the B tier for the leveling tier list. The next specialization is the Brewmaster. Again, you've got the benefits of being a tank spec, so in War Mode, people probably not going to mess with you, but your damage output is pretty minimal. Obviously, you're a great tank, but damage output's a bit lacking. You have exceptional mobility just from being the monk class, so you'll be able to go monster to monster pretty easily. Not going to have a tough time surviving, but in my mind, you're going to be kind of so slow through the process that I would put Brewmaster on a D tier for leveling here. Next up, we've got the Demonology Warlock. This is a specialization that I kind of want to put on F tier for literally every single piece of content in the game. It's a specialization that just does not feel great at the moment. You still have some of the similar benefits, bringing in a Felguard for your demons to be able to tank, and you can heal them up with Health Funnel, summon in a giant army to just do your bidding for you. So it's going to be efficient, and I think it is going to be effective. Not as effective and efficient as Affliction, because Affliction is mostly instant casts, whereas Demonology has to stand still to do a lot, so it's not going to be as easy. You don't have Bloodlust. It might be difficult to take on big elites by yourself, so in my mind, Demonology is probably falling to C for the leveling experience. Next up, we've got Destruction Warlock. This is a specialization that received a lot of quality of life changes when it comes to AoE. When you have your Infernal off cooldown, you can do really big pulls, very similar to like the evasion pulls from a rogue or a die by the sword pull from an arms warrior. And you're going to have massive cleave in those windows. But outside of that, you can utilize the Voidwalker. It's likely you're going to pull aggro from it though, because you do such heavy burst damage, and your damage doesn't really heal you as effectively as the Affliction Warlock. In my mind, Destruction is falling on the B tier for the leveling in Shadowlands. Discipline Priest, we've got our first healing specialization on the list, which is not necessarily a role that I would recommend you level as out in the world. But Discipline Priest is actually one of them that you could get away with it. It's a really cheeky spec on War Mode because you beat pretty much every DPS one-on-one. So if you want to get the benefits of War Mode and farm some noobs on your way to max level out in the world, Discipline Priest is good. It's not going to be as efficient as Shadow Priest. It's not going to be as fast in my mind. But if you were going to level as a healer, Discipline Priest would be a lot of fun out of all of them. It would probably be the only one I would even remotely suggest that you level as. So in my mind, Discipline Priest is also going to be going on the B tier. It's held back by not having as... Actually, you know what? I'm putting it on A tier. It's going on the A tier. I think that with the damage output it's got at the moment, it can compete with Affliction. It's very similar. Keep Purge the Wicked on multiple targets. You're going to be great in PvP with War Mode on. I think as Discipline, you would be fine leveling as Discipline. But when we get to Shadow, we'll talk more about Shadow. Elemental Shaman. Now, this is a specialization that doesn't have the immediate burst damage in AoE as a lot of the other specializations in the game. Its damage over time effect Flame Shock has a cooldown, so your ability to like pull a bunch of things all at once and dot them and rot them down is basically non-existent. I feel like you're either going to be doing big pulls with something like an Earth Elemental, which is a great tool while leveling. Basically, the Earth Elemental comes in and it taunts everything around you, so you can pull pretty big monsters like elite monsters and burst them down with Bloodlust or Heroism. But going pull to pull outside of those situations, it's going to be held back a bit. Again, similar to the Balanced Druid, your ability to recover is going to be limited to your mana. So in my mind, Elemental Shaman is probably a B tier leveler. I'm debating whether or not I want to put it on C tier, to be honest. Its lack of stealth. We'll put it on a B tier. Enhancement Shaman, now the melee DPS. It's not as smooth and buttery as a lot of the other melee DPS when it comes to efficiency of leveling. It's got a bit of extra AoE damage, but it takes a beating as well. And you have to spend your Maelstrom weapon charges to heal yourself instead of do damage, so it gets really held back. It doesn't have stealth. It does have Bloodlust similar to the Elemental. It does still have the Earth Elemental similar to Elemental, so you can take down really big monsters by itself. But as far as its overall effectiveness and its limitations, unlike Elemental, which could just use Frost Shock and Kite a lot and avoid targets, it doesn't have that. So in my mind, it falls a bit short from Elemental. I'm putting it on the C tier. For Feral Druid, now this is a specialization that is one of the kings of the jungle when it comes to leveling. This is a specialization that can obviously stealth, sneak around. You can jump into bear form to be a bit more durable and recover. Utilize instant casts through predatory swiftness to root a target, avoid it, heal yourself back up before engaging with it if you pull too many monsters. You can multi-dot. It's got the whole toolkit. In my mind, the Feral Druid is a specialization that is S tier when it comes to leveling. If you're interested in playing a Druid and you want a smooth leveling experience, Feral Druid is definitely a go-to, and it's going to be really easy as well on top of that. Now, Fire Mage, it's kind of the oddball of the mages when it comes to leveling specifically. Its lack of healing. It's a lot of the things that healed in Battle for Azeroth are no longer present on a lot of the specializations, so you don't have any Azerite traits or anything throughout the process that are going to be healing. Only your Blazing Barrier, really. It does still have Time Warp, obviously. It's for a big hit with Combustion, so you could take down elite monsters. Its problem is maintaining a slow. While Frostbolt was returned to it, really hard to use it with a 2-second cast time on top of getting your damage rotation out, so it's going to fall behind in my mind. It's still okay, but it's not great. In my mind, I would put Fire Mage as a D tier leveling specialization. Now we've got the Frost Death Knight, a big cleaver, lots of damage through Remorseless Winter. This is a specialization that's just feeling awesome right now in Shadowlands. The return of the two-handed spec for it is definitely making it a really fun spec, but is it a great leveler? Now, you've got passives like Dark Sucre, and I probably said that wrong, but when you kill a target, your next Death Strike heals a lot, similarly to Victory Rush from Arms Warriors. So you can do big pulls with Howling Blast, group enemies up. If you're playing with War Mode on, Chill Streak is still just as good against monsters. Really suggest you level with War Mode with it. You can do really big pulls, pop a lot of cooldowns, and then as you kill a target, you get a big Death Strike. Kill a target, get a big Death Strike. Kill a target, get a big Death Strike. So in my mind, this is a spec that you can farm a lot with. It's going to be really effective for leveling. I'm putting it on the A tier. Not on the S tier because it doesn't have stealth. So Feral Druid and Beastmaster Hunter both have the capabilities of utilizing stealth, but it's going to be a real powerhouse when it comes to leveling. Now, Frost Mage is a great leveling specialization when it comes to Mage because you have snares. So you can pull a lot of monsters with the Frozen Orb, drop a Blizzard, watch them all die, chill on the beach, you know. Leveling a Mage in Shadowlands is the same as leveling a Classic. It's a breeze, right? And I'm not saying that because it's, you know, the Frost. Okay, maybe that wasn't that funny. In my mind, Frost Mage is going to be an S tier leveling spec. You've got the entire kit. You can slow, kite, avoid damage, go invisible to skip pulls, slow fall to jump down long distances. It's got the entire kit. It's going to be a strong leveling specialization. Fury Warrior, now this is a solid leveling specialization. It's got so much healing. You can just pull nonstop and consistently heal up. Again, I recommend playing with War Mode on with Fury Warrior to access some of their honor talents, which will provide you additional healing and self-sustainability. This is a leveling machine that just doesn't stop pull to pull. Downside, again, doesn't have stealth, but everything else about it is great. It's an A tier leveling specialization. Guardian Druid, another tank on the list here. This is one that is really durable. You're never going to take damage. You still get the benefits of leveling with War Mode on and nobody wanting to mess with you. You get stealth like Feral Druid, but you're not as fast at killing things as Feral Druid. So in my mind, Guardian Druid falls a little bit short of the Feral, but for leveling, it's definitely up there. Can do a lot of damage. You get instant Qs, no problem on War Mode. Now, the Havoc Demon Hunter. This is probably one of the few specializations that I'm going to put on S tier that doesn't have stealth. If you play Night Elf, you can utilize Shadow Meld. So everyone who's playing Alliance, which I don't know any of you, why would you do that? But regardless, you can play Night Elf and you can run through a bunch of packs, then Shadow Meld and drop all of the aggro and get the benefits that way through a racial as opposed to invisibility or prowl or camouflage. So you still get the benefit. Demon Hunter is a monster when it comes to leveling. With Metamorphosis Leech healing, and whenever you kill a target, it drops a soul, and when you pick it up, it heals you. You just go into every single pull. You've got Glide, so you can Fell Rush, and then start slow falling down. There's a lot of traversing. So the Demon Hunter is an S tier. Even though it's lacking the stealth, everything else about it is so good that it carries it. Havoc Demon Hunter is an S tier. Holy Paladin, this is a specialization that I would not recommend anybody level as. If you got friends, okay, maybe. But even still, probably just go Ret if you're going to be leveling. Switch Holy for a moment, go into a dungeon, sure, but I made the mistake of leveling as Holy in my World of Warcraft days throughout history, and I'm not making that spec again. F. Don't do it. Don't make that mistake. Holy Priest, very similar to Holy Paladin in that sense. We're not even going to talk about it. Let's just avoid it. It's down there. Probably don't want to go through the questing experience by yourself as a Holy Priest or a Holy Paladin. Probably best just to avoid it. Now we've got the Marksmanship Hunter. This is a specialization that still has the pet like Beast Mastery, but you strip aggro from it pretty quickly with how much burst damage you have. You can't kind of just go pull to pull and AoE things down. You're really cooldown dependent. It's a little bit slower in my mind. You still get the benefits of camouflage and feigned death, so it's definitely a top leveler, but I wouldn't say that it's as good as Beast Mastery for leveling and its fluidity. So in my mind, it falls a bit short. I'm going to put it on the B tier. It still has all the other great things that Beast Mastery has, but it's just a little bit slower. Mistweaver Monk, again, a specialization I wouldn't recommend as leveling. It's just going to be really slow. Just be Windwalker. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I'm sorry for any healers out there that are upset about their specs being at the bottom, but it just is how it is. It just is how it is. We got Outlaw. This is the top dog of Mythic Plus for a long time in BFA. It's going to have great AoE damage. It has some of the limitations of Subtlety Rogue has some other benefits that make it just amazing for leveling that Outlaw doesn't. You can do big pulls and then use evasion, which is now returned Outlaw. Use evasion to dodge attacks and kind of burst AoE down a bunch of targets. You have stealth and you have grappling hook to get around, which is going to be great for traversing the map. So you still get some benefits. And with evasion, you can pull elite mobs and try and burst them down. It's an effective leveling specialization, but not fantastic. I would put it as a B tier. And now we've got the Prop Paladin. This is a specialization that in older expansions I used to love leveling as. I used to just love pulling tons of melee attackers and watching them hit me and die. That was great. You can still do that. And again, as a tank, get the benefits in war mode that people are probably just not going to mess with you. You're really never going to have to stop pulling. Your damage is going to be a little bit short of everybody. I wouldn't say that it's Guardian Druid for leveling. Maybe it's close. You know what? It's probably close. You could level as it. No, it's going on B. I don't think it's as great as the Guardian. It doesn't have stealth, and it's going to be a bit slower. So I don't think it deserves to be up there on the A tier. But as a leveling specialization, B tier, war mode, instant dungeon queues. You can solo any monster you want pretty easily. It's a great pick. Prot Warrior, definitely better than Arms Warrior, but not by much. Obviously, you still don't have stealth, so you're not going to be sneaking around, but you'll be able to deal with elite monsters pretty easily. Self-sustainability is going to be a little bit lacking. It does receive some healing in its talent changes, which does redeem it a bit. I would put it as a C tier leveling specialization. But if you're really leveling as warrior through the questing experience, I would recommend Fury. Restoration Druid. Now, it's not as bad as Holy Paladin, Holy Priest, or Mistweaver Monk in my mind with Feral Affinity, but it's really not that great either. You're probably not going to struggle in terms of dying, but it's just going to be really slow and painful. You do still get the benefits of things like stealth. So in my mind, it's an E. It's above the other healers, but it's still going to be really painful. It's not as great as Discipline at being able to take on other players as well with War Mode on. So it falls a little bit behind. Not one that I would recommend. Restoration Shaman, similar boat here with the healing specializations. It's just not really a great option to level solo as a Restoration Shaman. Retribution Paladin. Now, this is one that is going to be decent with Word of Glory returning. You have a lot of self-sustainability through that, a ton of damage, a ton of AoE damage, really powerful cooldowns like Divine Shield to pull elite monsters, and you're not going to have any problem dealing with them. You've got emergency recovery like Lay on Hands, which you normally don't talk about when it comes to leveling. It's going to be pretty important. To me, Retribution Paladin, it's probably an A, but I also kind of now want to drop the Prop Paladin down, but I feel like it's going to be an A tier leveling specialization with its sustainability, its mobility, as far as mount speed goes, not its mobility as far as like in PvP. I already know that it's not at the top there, but it's going to be a really good specialization to level as, period. Now, Shadow Priest. This is a specialization that's very similar to Affliction Warlock, but probably even amplified. It's going to heal a lot with Devouring Plague return to it. So Vampiric Touch and Devouring Plague and Vampiric Embrace, you will heal yourself a lot. I'm curious to see how it plays out. In my mind, it's going to be about the same tier as Affliction Warlock for leveling. I'd put it as an A tier specialization. You're going to be able to pump out a lot of damage, pull a lot of mobs, go pull to pull pretty seamlessly. Powered Shield is very powerful for it as well in Shadowlands, so it's an A tier leveling specialization. Now, Subtlety Rogue, this is a great specialization with the ability to heal while in stealth through talents, the immediate burst damage that it brings. You're taking down a target immediately. It's got a lot of AoE potential as well brought to it in Shadowlands. In my mind, maybe the danger of it is taking on elite monsters, but you can utilize things like blind to blind the target for a long time and then reset your cooldowns, utilize evasion to be immune to damage during those windows. So I'd say Subtlety is an S tier leveling specialization. It has all of the benefits that the others have, maybe a little bit less damage, but it's up there. It's up there. Survival Hunter. Now, this is one that I would say is not comparable to Beast Mastery. It's a bit awkward, similarly to Marksmanship Hunter. You do still get camouflage, but you're going to be taking a lot of damage. You get the feigned death benefits. It's probably B tier in my mind. Survival Hunter is a bit of an odd one when it comes to leveling, but it's just not as efficient and smooth in damage output and going like pull to pull to pull and cleaving down and recovering. It's just a bit slower. than the A tier and the S tiers. Unholy Death Knight doesn't bring the same kind of punch as the Frost Death Knight, but your ability to summon Army of the Dead for really big important monsters that might otherwise not be soloable to hold aggro. It does bring a ton of AoE damage. You still get the benefits of Death Strike and killing a target and then Death Striking, so in my mind it competes with Frost as an A tier leveling specialization. Vengeance Demon Hunter. It's basically Havoc, just a little bit slower damage. You get the benefits of being a tank on war mode. In my mind, it's an A tier leveling specialization. You're going to have a smooth experience. It's just a bit slower than Havoc. I probably wouldn't recommend it over Havoc, which is why it's on a lower tier, but it's got all the other benefits like being able to glide through the air and traverse the map, which is very important in Shadowlands. And finally, we've got one more specialization left. We've got the Windwalker Monk. Now with war mode and PvP talents like Turbo Fist, which makes your Fists of Fury parry attacks, you can pull a bunch of monsters all together, Fists of Fury be immune to their melee attacks, and just kind of AoE them down all at the same time. Things like Touch of Karma allow you to pull elite monsters easily, redirect the damage back to the target, and you can take on elite mobs. It's got really high mobility. Downsides would be things like not having stealth. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it's an S tier leveling specialization. So I would put it as an A, though, an A tier leveling specialization. And that's the list. We've got our S, our A, our B, our C, our D, our E, and our F. And guess what? There's a spec on every single row. We didn't put them all on the same one. I hope that this was an entertaining video for you all at home to watch. I'd love to hear your opinions on what you think down in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please leave it with a like. And if you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel, as I'm uploading Shadowlands content every single day. If you want spec reviews, class guides, tier lists, the whole shebang, everything you need to try and get prepared for Shadowlands, this is the channel. At least I'm doing my best to make it be the channel to be. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.